I didn't expect to end up here, sitting alone in my study, long after midnight, staring at a blank page with a cup of tea that went cold an hour ago. I'm 67 years old. I've been a man long enough to know that some things are not easily spoken about, not even in the mirror. But what I'm about to tell you is the kind of truth that changes everything once you finally let yourself hear it. So I'm going to speak plainly. No performance. No dramatics. Just one man talking to another about something that nearly every man over 60 faces in silence. My name doesn't matter as much as my story does, because my story is probably a lot like yours. I grew up in a generation where men didn't complain. You worked, you provided, you kept your feelings to yourself, and you certainly didn't talk about what happened, or didn't happen, behind closed bedroom doors. You handled it. Except, somewhere along the way, I realized you can't handle what you don't understand. And most men my age were never given the information we actually needed. We were given pills. We were given shame. We were given silence. But never the truth about what was really going on inside our own bodies. It started for me in my early 60s. At first, it was almost nothing. A moment that didn't quite go the way it used to. A hesitation where there had never been one before. I told myself it was stress. Work had been heavy. I hadn't slept well. I'd had a drink with dinner. Every man finds his excuse, and the excuse is almost always reasonable. That's what makes it so easy to ignore the first time, and the second, and the third, until one evening you're lying next to someone you love, and you realize this isn't an accident anymore. It's a pattern. And the weight that settles on your chest in that moment is something no younger man could ever understand. Because it's not just about the body. It's about identity. It's about the quiet story you've been telling yourself your whole life. That you are capable. That you are a man. That when the moment comes, you will rise to it. Literally. And when that story starts to crack, something deep inside you cracks with it. You start pulling away. You start avoiding. You start making jokes you don't mean. Or worse, you stop making them at all. You tell yourself you're just tired. You tell your wife you're just tired. But underneath all of it is a fear you can't name out loud. What if this is just how it is now? What if this is who I am now? That was the question that haunted me. And for a long time, I had no answer. I did what most men do. I went to the doctor, and I got what most men get. A 15-minute appointment, a blood pressure check, a prescription pad, and a pat on the shoulder. The pill was supposed to be the answer. For a while, it felt like it was. But here's what nobody tells you about those pills. They don't fix anything. They force a response. They override a system that's trying to tell you something is wrong. And every time I took one, somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I was silencing a warning signal instead of listening to it. I was treating the symptom and ignoring the cause. And a man in his 60s doesn't have time to keep ignoring causes. Not anymore. So I started reading. Not the magazines at the checkout counter. Not the ads that pop up at 2 in the morning. I started reading real research. Cardiology papers, studies on vascular health, work done by universities and hospitals. And what I found, honestly, made me angry. Because the information was there. It had been there for years. It just wasn't being shared with men like me in a way we could actually use. Here is what I learned, and I want you to hear this carefully, because this was the moment everything shifted for me. An erection is not primarily about desire. It is not primarily about hormones, though hormones matter. It is not primarily about your age, though age plays a role. An erection, at its most fundamental biological level, is a vascular event. It is blood moving through arteries. It is pressure, flow, and the flexibility of tissue that has to expand and hold. If any part of that vascular chain is compromised, the rest doesn't matter. You can have all the desire in the world. You can be in the most loving marriage imaginable. You can be attracted to your partner the way you were the day you met her. But if blood is not moving properly through your body cannot respond. It is that simple, and it is that brutal. Now think about what happens to arteries as a man ages. This isn't pessimism. This is physiology. Over decades, our arteries accumulate plaque. The inner walls, which are supposed to be smooth and flexible, become stiffer, narrower, less responsive. And here's the part that stopped me cold when I first read it. The arteries that serve the most intimate parts of a man's body are smaller than the ones that serve his heart. That means they clog earlier, they stiffen earlier, they send warning signals earlier. In other words, what a man experiences in the bedroom at 60 is often the first visible sign of what his heart will experience at 70. Let that sink in. The performance issue so many of us quietly carry shame about is not a character flaw. It is not a failure of masculinity. It is not something to hide. It is, in many cases, the earliest and most honest warning signal your cardiovascular system is capable of giving you. And if you listen to it, if you actually listen, you can do something about it before it becomes something far more serious. That was the moment my shame turned into something else. Curiosity, determination, maybe even a kind of gratitude, strange as that sounds, because my body wasn't betraying me. My body was trying to save me. It was waving a flag I had been too proud, too embarrassed, and too uninformed to notice. And once I saw it for what it was, I couldn't unsee it. So I went to work. Not in a gym, not in a pharmacy, in my kitchen. Because the more I read, the more one theme kept appearing across every serious study I could find. Nutrition. Specifically, the role of certain plants, certain fruits, certain compounds that have been shown again and again in peer-reviewed research to support the very system that governs circulation. This wasn't folk medicine. This wasn't a magazine trend. This was data. Consistent, repeated, measurable data. Let me walk you through what I found, because this is where things started to change for me in a real noticeable way. The first category that kept coming up was berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. These small, unassuming fruits are packed with compounds called anthocyanins. What the research shows is that anthocyanins support something called endothelial function. The endothelium is the inner lining of every blood vessel in your body. When it works well, your arteries dilate properly, blood flows efficiently, and pressure regulates itself. When it doesn't, everything downstream suffers. Studies going back more than a decade have linked regular berry consumption with improved endothelial function in older adults. That's not a marketing claim. That's a mechanism. The second one that hit me was pomegranate. I had always thought of pomegranate as that fruit that was too much trouble to eat. Then I read the research. Pomegranate has been studied specifically for its effect on nitric oxide, which is the molecule your body uses to signal blood vessels to relax and open. Nitric oxide is, quite literally, the chemistry of circulation, and as men age, our natural nitric oxide production drops. Research on pomegranate juice has shown measurable improvements in vascular function in men with arterial issues. I'm not telling you pomegranate is a cure. I'm telling you it's a tool, a real one, backed by real studies. Then came watermelon, and this one genuinely surprised me. Watermelon contains an amino acid called citrulline. Your body converts citrulline into arginine, and arginine is a precursor to nitric oxide. So watermelon, a fruit most men associate with summer picnics, is actually feeding the exact pathway that governs blood vessel relaxation. It's a chain reaction that begins with something you already know how to eat. Citrus fruits came next: oranges, grapefruit, lemons. These are rich in flavonoids, particularly hesperidin, which research has linked to reduced arterial stiffness and improved vascular function. Arterial stiffness is one of the defining markers of aging in the cardiovascular system. Anything that addresses it, honestly addresses it, deserves attention. Avocado was another one, not usually thought of as a circulation fruit, but avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats and compounds that help reduce inflammation. Inflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation, is one of the silent drivers of arterial damage over time. Fighting it is part of the equation. And then there were grapes, especially dark grapes, rich in resveratrol. Apples, rich in quercetin. Tomatoes, rich in lycopene. Each one with its own mechanism, each one with its own supporting research, each one pointing in the same direction, the same truth, that the food a man eats every single day either supports his vascular system or slowly erodes it. What all of these foods share is something important, and I want you to understand this clearly. They do not force your body to respond. They help your body recover its ability to respond. That is a completely different approach from what most men have been taught. It is not about stimulation. It is about restoration. It is not about overriding a broken system. It is about rebuilding it. And here is where I have to be honest with you about something else. This is not fast. Nothing that actually works on the vascular level works overnight. If someone promises you a miracle in 48 hours, they are selling you a fantasy. And when the fantasy wears off, you will be in the same place you started. Real change in the body takes weeks, sometimes months, because arteries don't rebuild themselves in a weekend. They respond to consistent, daily input over time. That's how biology works. That's how every legitimate recovery works. But here is the other side of that honesty. Slow does not mean ineffective. Slow means real. When you give your body the conditions it needs, day after day, it begins to do what it was designed to do. The endothelium heals. Nitric oxide production improves. Inflammation decreases. Arterial flexibility returns. And with it, something else comes back that you probably thought was gone forever. Confidence. Not the loud, performative confidence of a younger man. Something quieter. Something deeper. The confidence of a man who knows his body again. Who trusts it again. Who has made peace with it. I want to tell you what that felt like, because it's the part no study measures. The first time, after months of doing this work, that my body simply responded, without a pill, without pressure, without the anxiety that had become background noise in my life, I didn't celebrate. I didn't high-five anyone. I just lay there in the dark, with my wife asleep next to me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Pure, quiet relief. Like a weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying had finally set itself down. That's what I want you to understand. This isn't really about sex. Not at the deepest level. Sex is just the arena where the truth shows up first. What it's really about is reclaiming your relationship with your own body. It's about ending the silent war so many men over 60 are fighting alone. It's about looking at yourself in the mirror and recognizing the man looking back. And there's something else I have to say, because I don't want to leave anyone with the wrong impression. This is not a story about vanity. This is not about chasing youth. I am not 25 years old, and I don't want to be. The goal is not to turn back time. The goal is to live fully in the time I have, to be present with the woman I love, to have energy for the grandchildren, to walk up a hill without my heart complaining, to wake up in the morning and feel like my body and I are on the same team again. Everything I've described here supports that. All of it. Now, there are other pieces to this puzzle, and I want to mention them briefly because leaving them out would be dishonest. Movement matters. I'm not talking about becoming an athlete. I'm talking about walking. Every day. 30 minutes. The cardiovascular system responds to movement the way a garden responds to water. Sleep matters. Most of the repair work your blood vessels do happens while you're asleep. And most men our age are chronically underslept and don't realize it. Stress matters. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which damages the vascular system over time. And alcohol matters, more than most of us want to admit. I'm not going to preach. I'm just telling you what I learned. But food is where most men have the most immediate control. You eat 3 or more times a day. Every one of those meals is either helping you or hurting you. There is no neutral ground. Once you see food this way, you can't unsee it. And the shift doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to throw out everything in your pantry. You just have to start adding a handful of berries in the morning, a glass of pomegranate juice a few times a week, watermelon when it's in season, citrus on your salad, avocado with your eggs. Small, consistent, daily choices that, added up over weeks and months, change the internal environment of your entire body. And here is something I want to say directly to any man who has been quietly struggling with this and feeling alone. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not less of a man. You are a man whose body is doing what bodies do, and whose body is also telling you something important. The question isn't whether to listen. The question is how soon you're willing to start. I waited too long. I spent years embarrassed, years frustrated, years pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I wish someone had sat me down when I was 55 and told me what I'm telling you now. That this is fixable. That it is not inevitable. That the same body that's been loyal to you for 6 decades is still on your side. It just needs the right fuel and the right patience. If this speaks to you, don't just nod and move on. Do one thing today. Buy the berries. Pour the glass of pomegranate juice. Take the walk. Go to bed an hour earlier. Pick one thing. Then pick another tomorrow. Because the journey back to yourself isn't made in giant leaps. It's made in small, stubborn, daily decisions that nobody sees but you. If you've made it this far, and something in this story resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in any part of what I've shared, then I want you to know that the natural method I followed is something I've put together in a simple, clear guide that any man can start using today. No prescriptions, no side effects, no shortcuts that don't last. Just the real, science-backed approach to restoring your vascular health from the inside out. The link is right here. Take a look. Read it with the same openness you brought to this video. Because the man who takes that next step is the man who gets his life back. Your body has not given up on you. It is waiting for you to stop giving up on it. That is the truth. That is the whole truth. And once you accept it, everything else starts to change. So take a deep breath. Let the shame go. It doesn't belong to you. It never did. What belongs to you is the next choice, and the one after that, and the one after that. That's where your power has always been. That's where it still is. And that's where the rest of this story begins. Not with a pill, not with a miracle, not with someone else's promise, but with a man who finally decides that the quiet warning his body has been sending him for years deserves, at last, to be heard. I heard mine. I hope you hear yours.